Hello, my name is Sheila Roush. I'm doing a presentation today for senior seminar for Peru State. This is my senior thesis presentation. The topic that I chose for my presentation is the psychological effects of solitary confinement, also known as administrative segregation, disciplinary detention, other terms like that. I chose this topic because I'm interested in understanding the effects of the timeout that we give offenders to help them learn and understand from their mistakes. As we were children, and like we did with our own or do with our own children, when they do something that's wrong, we put them in timeout. We help them learn from their experience. We give them time to think about what's going on. The same thing happens in the Department of Corrections. The topic matters because we are working within the Department of Corrections to help offenders understand the wrongs that they've committed, help them rethink the way that they think, how to process what they've done wrong, and look for rehabilitation, and understand and find ways to be active members and pro-social members of our society. We want them to conform to the laws and the practices set forth by our society, and in order to be a productive member of that society, they have to learn and understand from what they've done. I think that I became interested in this subject, and because it is, and the reason that it's important to me is I work with a group of 17 to 18 offenders at a time. I'm a substance abuse counselor within the Department of Corrections in the state of Iowa, and for 4 months I have a particular group of gentlemen. These men work through their emotional, their psychological, their criminal history, their drug addictions, and all of that kind of stuff to help them understand themselves better and to become the proactive members of our society. During group one day, one of the individuals said that one of the most beneficial things that he had done for treatment or a class or anything while he's been in an institution is to be in solitary confinement. He said being in solitary confinement helped him to get to know himself, the way he thinks, the way that he wants to think, the changes that he wants to make, and to actually make plans to make those changes. Listening to this man talk about this made me think that maybe solitary confinement wasn't the negative part of incarceration, often portrayed in movies, in the news. A lot of the articles that I found doing this paper portrayed administrative segregation or lockup as a negative thing. And I think part of it is because we as a society don't necessarily understand what goes on in administrative segregation. I wasn't able to take a camera and go into a cell and videotape that, but I think I can help you make your own visualization of what a cell is like. Normal cell is 5 by 7. If you sit in the middle of the room and stretch out your hands or lay down on the floor, your head and feet or both arms could touch the walls easily. The length of the cell is enough to fit a twin-size bed with 2 foot at the end. In that 2 foot section, there's a toilet, a sink, and a desk for them to write on. They are confined within themselves. They take all of their meals inside. They're removed from their cells in shackles to take their showers. They get an hour of yard time daily. But the time that they spend while they're in segregation is by themselves. They get to know themselves inside and out, and it helps them to make the changes that they want to make with their lives. One of the most interesting things that I found out while doing this is that while looking at articles and reading books and searching for stuff online, I found all kinds of stuff that portrayed this as a negative type of punishment. But when you sit down and you talk to an offender, this is a positive experience for them. And for me, it was enlightening to know that, yes, that they welcomed that time by themselves. And I thought going in that I was going to be able to affirm the fact that administrative segregation was a psychological negative for most of the guys. And the ones that I talked to in some of the articles that I read said that, yes, in the beginning, mental deterioration did happen. But after they got comfortable with being in that cell by themselves, when they were able to spend time with themselves, it was a positive experience. And some of them choose to go back to administrative seg or protective custody to have that time by themselves. I found this interesting because most people have a hard time living with themselves. And most of the offenders that I've worked with have never really had any time to themselves, and they don't understand themselves. They've followed along, they've not made their own choices, and administrative segregation helps them sort out for themselves who they are. I think that in all of the articles and things that I've read, I was able to find one article that showed that this was a positive thing and that there was no proof in their study that this was a negative thing. Administrative segregation could have been a positive thing for a lot of people. Some of the articles that I did read were talked about how negative it was and how detrimental it was and how they were impacted for life. And I haven't seen that in the institution that I work at. I see the growth, I see the maturing. And in our society, when we convict somebody, we expect restitution. We expect for them to go to a facility and learn how to be productive members of our society. Administrative segregation is part of that. I think that it's a beneficial policy if it's enforced correctly. Is it always enforced correctly? I don't think so. I think that there has to be rules and regulations. I think that somebody needs to determine the amount of time per individual that's acceptable. For example, in the state of Missouri, when someone is convicted to a life sentence, they serve 25 years because the department in Missouri feels that after 25 years out of society that they're able to make, and through the rehabilitation process and the classes that they take while they're in prison, are able to re-enter society because they're willing and able to make changes. In the state of Iowa, if you receive a life sentence, you're going to die in prison. You don't get that chance for rehabilitation. You don't get that. And those individuals in the facility that I work at, they don't care about going to administrative segregation. Their ADSEG is because it is a punishment. Sometimes they're there for a lengthy amount of time and they don't change. And they don't change because they choose not to. But for the offender that goes into administrative segregation or protective custody, that wants to make the change, that's willing to look within themselves, to make the changes, to seek the help, to understand who they are, administrative segregation is a positive thing. The questions that I still have about it is it different in every state? Is it different in every institution? And I think that further studies need to happen so that it's a uniform, positive event. And I know that in the history of the Department of Corrections, administrative segregation was cruel and unusual punishment. And I think as we change as a society and we start to work on rehabilitating, and we actually want those offenders to be able to perform in society, to be the member of society that's making positive changes, that we're willing to have live next door to us, I think that we need to be uniform. I think that the ADSEG time needs to be positive. I think the solitary confinement needs to be the learning experience that it's created to be. And I think that the Department of Corrections itself, in order to help make this happen, need to have staff who are understanding and able to make those decisions. They're able to work with the offender to help the offender learn pro-social behavior. By leading by example, we teach these people how we want them to behave in our society. And sometimes a timeout is necessary. I think it's beneficial, and at some point in our lives, we all need that timeout. Thank you very much.